Hello, I'm Lieutenant Commander Shannon Martin, call sign Fraggle, one of the Aviation Safety Analysts at the Naval Safety Center. And today I'm joined by PRC Richard Beach, one of the Maintenance Analysts at the Naval Safety Center. Hello, how are you doing, PRC?
Morning, ma'am. Doing well. Yourself?
I am doing great. So we've been talking, and you were telling me a story about when you were a CDI at one of the squadrons. Can you pick it up? Unpack that for me.
So it was back in 2006. I was with HSL 41 out in San Diego, California, an H-60 Helo Command, and I was a young second class new CDI. Had a young airman working for me who was new as well, and he was fitting and tacking on a life preserver that goes around the collar of the CME-33 survival vest. And those used to have to be tacked on instead of having the quick fittings like they do now that just clip into place. So back then we lashed them on, and then you had to do a tack in them so that they didn't slip out. Well, he had this very large needle that he had to do the tack with, and he pushed a little too hard, ended up going through the protective case of the LPU. Now, he may not have done any damage on the interior of the case, but rather than take any risk, and I mean, it's a huge mistake for a new young maintainer to do, that we've got to take this back off, take it back to eye level for maintenance, everything else. But he remained accountable to himself and to me as a CDI and to the aircrew members who rely on him for survival gear, that he did own up to his mistake. We took it off, took it back in to get tested and checked, and then refit it again, just to be sure that it was as safe and as properly fit and maintained as well as it could.
Okay, so when he came to you, right, he came to you and he said, "Hey, Beach, I think I just sewed right through the life preserver."
It was a little more dramatic than that. I was sitting across the shop, and all I heard was this, "Oh!"
Okay.
And I look up, and he's looking down surprised, and then looks at me, and then looks down surprised, and then looks at me. And when I say he got the needle through the protective case, I mean he was pushing hard enough that it went into the LPU-34, through the case, back out again. So it was basically like shimmed in there, kind of the way you would put a pin or a button on your shirt.
Okay.
It would have stayed had we left it.
Okay. And so what did you do?
Essentially, we just had to initiate a discrepancy against that LPU. He was real quick to own up to it and say, this happened, rather than try and kind of hide it or pull the needle out and not say anything and just hope that it was okay. We initiated the new maintenance action, removed the LPU, and turned it into AIMD to make sure that it tested and checked well and didn't have any holes in it before somebody had to rely on it in a survival situation.
Okay. And I guess what did you do? Is there anything that you could do as far as training or a control in order to prevent people from making that same mistake?
Well, one of the big controls is them coming out with the quick disconnects, and that was kind of the advent of all of that, was to make it, one, to reduce maintenance man hours, and two, so that human error like that was kind of taken away or taken out as a factor. So now that they've updated that, it's no longer an issue, but at the same time, slowing down when we're doing maintenance like that, especially as a young supervisor and a young maintainer, definitely could have probably prevented that in the first place.
Okay, and looking back now with a little bit more experience as a supervisor, would you have done anything differently with that situation, or do you feel, did young PR2 Beach handle that pretty well?
I think we handled it pretty well, because we did both own up to it, take it to maintenance control. We do have to turn this in, and we did all the proper steps. I think I would have been a little bit more involved in the maintenance evolution had I been a more seasoned CDI and understood that I did have a very junior maintainer doing it. But at the same time, with the situation we had, I think we handled it, the aftermath of it, well.
Great. And then my final question for you is, as a supervisor, do you have any advice of how to handle the transparency, the need for transparency and reporting, with the fear that a young maintainer might have with coming forward, and your need as a supervisor to hold the standard? You want them to report, you know they're worried about it. How can you, as a supervisor, help facilitate that?
Well, from day one, I was always taught, and this has carried on all the way through every different platform I've worked, as well as being behind the desk in maintenance control and running the maintenance desk. If someone comes in and owns up to a mistake, I did this, or this happened, or I noticed this during an inspection, I've never once seen anyone punished for something like that. They came in and said, I was turning a wrench and I over-torqued it completely and ripped the head off. It happens. They let us know. Now, the only time I've ever seen anybody get in trouble as far as maintainers go like that is when they do try and cover it up. Oh, I don't know what to do, and they run to their second class, and the good idea fairy starts spinning, and all of a sudden, rather than there be any issue, no, there's no problem, we've got it handled, and now here we are 2-3 hours down the line, and we're just now finding out about this when we've got operations to meet. If you just remain accountable to your supervisors, remain accountable to the maintenance desk, and accountable to yourself, and just own up when a mistake is made, 9 times out of 10, someone else has made that mistake before, and we know how to fix it. And if not, we'll all learn something new, but still, it's going to get repaired.
All right, well, thank you very much for sharing your story, Chief Beach. And out there, if you have any stories to share, please contact the Naval Safety Center. We'd be happy to share those stories and take it from Chief Beach. Transparency and accountability and following the procedures, setting in mitigations, and that we can keep operating and go flying. Have a great day. I'm Lieutenant Commander Martin.